Hi, I'm Southampton Town Supervisor Jay Schneiderman, and welcome to Talk of the Town, where we take a close look at issues affecting our community. Today we're going to be talking about property assessments, and I'm joined by Town Assessor Lisa Gorey. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, Jay.
Nice to
Thank
have
you for having me.
So, Lisa, you've been at this for a while. I think you became Town Assessor under my predecessor, Anna Throne-Holt, Supervisor Throne-Holt, who appointed you, and you've maintained yourself in that position. And I think it's actually something the community is interested in, because every single property owner has an assessment, which is a valuation of their property, and it's that valuation that determines their taxes, right?
Correct.
So the higher the value, or what we believe is the value of your property, the higher the taxes you're going to pay, right?
Yes and no.
Okay.
The tax rate actually determines what you're going to pay. So even if you have a high assessment, the tax rate could be low enough so that you may not see a change in your taxes from one year to another.
Oh, so you're saying if the property value goes up.
Correct.
So the tax rate is something that gets multiplied against that value to determine your actual amount of money that the town will collect.
That's right.
And so each of the districts, so the town collects money, the school districts collects money. It all goes through the tax receiver, but the fire departments, the libraries, it's all part of your tax bill.
That's right. That's right. Your assessment is multiplied by the tax rate, and the tax rate is derived from the budgets for each one of those districts that you mentioned.
All right. So explain a little bit about how we determine what we think your property is worth.
Well, since the town of Southampton assesses based on market value, actually it's kind of simple. We just have to analyze the sales that occur in the prior year, and if we see that an assessment is coming in, or a number of assessments in a particular area are actually, say, 10 to 15% less than what we're looking at the sales coming in at, then we would adjust those properties accordingly to get them at 100% market.
Right. So there's basically different ways your property can change value. You could improve your property.
Right.
Let's say you take a vacant piece of land and you build a home, right? Or you tear down a house and you build a brand new home, or you add on an addition. Or put in a pool or a deck. What about landscaping too? That's something we look at as well?
We don't assess on landscaping, no. Just basically the lot size, the area in which the lot may be located. School district is a factor in land assessments. And like you said, new construction, we assess new construction as well. Any improvements to the property that are actually permanently affixed to the property.
And so now, do you look at records in the building department? Do you visit the sites? How does it work?
We are actually given copies of the building permits that are issued in the building department, and then from there, I have 3 field people that are assigned to areas in the town. They actually go out and they do the data collection for those properties. And then after that, it comes back and it's reviewed by my appraisers.
So what if somebody, let's say, puts a shed on their property and didn't bother to get a building permit for that shed, which they needed? Is that something we pick up?
If we see it while we're out there, we will put it on our records. Right.
And for those people who think that possibly they can sneak a little something in, we do a flyover occasionally?
Pictometry, yes.
What is pictometry?
Pictometry is an aerial imagery that we use every 3 years. We have to update our aerial photography, and we can actually use that to catch any changes on a property over a certain period of time. So if someone did put a shed illegally on their property and we were to pick it up on our pictometry, then we would capture that and put it in our inventory.
Right, and we have one coming, right?
We have a flyover coming this spring, yes. The last one that was done was 2014, and in order for us to use it as part of our reassessment process, the imagery has to be updated every 3 years.
Sure.
So we're going to be getting it done this spring.
So, different governments, different functions, schools, etc. There are different ways that revenues are collected to run those operations. So the county is funded primarily through sales tax. You buy something, you pay sales tax. The state, federal government, largely income tax, depending on how much you make. The towns are primarily property tax, though we do get some money from courts, collections, from fines. We get some money from park fees, like beach parking stickers and things like that. But most of the town's revenue is coming from
Real property taxes.
Property taxes. And with that money, we do good things. We maintain beautiful parks. We have a great police department. We take care of our roads. We provide a lot of different services to the public, senior services, nutrition programs. But people still, sometimes they get frustrated when it's time to pay their property tax bill. And it's twice a year. And most of that property tax bill, it turns out, isn't the town. Most of that property tax bill is actually the school, which is also funded primarily through property taxes, typically about 70%. The town is probably more like 20% of that bill.
Right.
But still, when it's time to pay taxes, people sometimes say, well, boy, this seems like a lot of money. And they question then why this is their allocation, why this is their fair share. And you can see actually on your tax bill what
percentage goes to what district.
Well, not just that, but can you see on the tax bill what the town believes your property is worth?
Well, the appraised value is also on the tax bill. The assessed value and the appraised value are both on the tax bill. And I think that I should mention that when people get their tax bill in December, in most cases people are surprised to see their tax bill. And of course they call my office. But at that point in December, it's typically too late to do anything as far as reducing their assessments then, unless there is an error of essential fact that occurred in my office, such as an exemption not being applied or incorrect inventory. But a taxpayer can grieve their taxes. They can grieve their assessment, not their taxes, excuse me.
Right. Well, talk a little bit about the grievance procedure. So if you think that we have valued your house higher than it should be, what do you do?
Well, first thing you would do is you would contact my office, and then we would explain the grievance process. Grievance process occurs every third Tuesday in May. It's a 4-page application that is filled out, and you have to state why you feel that your property is overvalued. Since we are at market value, we suggest that you provide us with at least 3 comparable sales that have occurred in your area. The Board of Assessment Review will hear all arguments on Grievance Day. This year, Grievance Day, and in the past, has been located at St. Rosalie's in Hampton Bays. And the board is available from 9 in the morning till 8 p.m. at night. So you can come in person and grieve your assessment. The board doesn't make any determinations on that day. You will be notified at a later date, usually around July 1st, of the board's determination. We also have the grievance process where taxpayers can actually file online. They don't even have to come into the office or come into Grievance Day. So
and if they're not happy with the decision of the Board of Assessment Review, what are their options? In
the board's determination notice, there's an instruction that they can go on further and seek judicial review, and that's through the small claims process. They have until August 1st then to file a small claims application with the county clerk's office, and they will be notified of a date to come in and let a judicial hearing officer hear their case.
And I know sometimes people use companies. I see in the mail, I'm always getting these things.
Yes.
Get your taxes lowered, whatever.
Right, yeah. There are tax agencies out there that can represent homeowners, but for the most part, the grievance application and the small claims, like I said, it's a 4-page application.
And
any
people can do
taxpayer
it themselves.
Can do it themselves,
Right.
yes.
You had mentioned a little bit earlier that exemptions exist, that maybe you had missed an exemption. So talk about some of those exemptions. So let's make sure that our public knows what they're entitled to in terms of tax reductions.
We have the veterans exemption, which has become really popular with the school districts. A lot of the school districts now have the opportunity to grant the veterans exemption to the taxpayers in their districts. We also have the senior citizen exemption, which is an income-based exemption, and you have to be 65 or older. Your income can't be any more than, I think, $37,600 for that. There's also the STAR exemption, which is for property owners. There is an enhanced STAR exemption for senior citizens, and then as well as a basic STAR exemption, which anyone can apply for that. I believe the income has to be less than $500,000 for the basic.
Okay.
And then there are other exemptions.
And how large is that exemption? Because I'm going to
It
apply
depends.
for
It
my
actually
STAR
depends.
exemption.
It actually depends on the school district. The savings could be anywhere from, say, in the higher taxing school districts, it could be anywhere from $700
Wow.
to down to maybe $200 or $300. So it depends on what school
So that's
district.
significant. So how do you
It
get a STAR exemption?
In the past, property owners would file in my office, in the assessor's office, but over the last 2 years, the state has changed that. You now have to file with the Office of Real Property Tax Services. There is a number if anyone would like
So you
to
do
call.
it online?
You can do it online, or you could call New York State and they will assist you with applying for it.
Right, so people really should take advantage of that.
Definitely take advantage of
And
the
now,
STAR.
how did a senior is over what?
65,
65.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
yes.
So if you're over 65, then you get the enhanced STAR?
You get the enhanced, and for the enhanced, your income can't be any more than $86,000. So for a senior citizen,
Okay.
they could have both the STAR enhanced and the senior citizen exemption.
Are there any other exemptions? Do we have a solar power exemption?
We have the solar exemption, which my office has seen quite a few applicants this year. I haven't had a chance to review them all, but I think this year is probably the most that we have received. We also have first-time home buyers exemptions. We have home improvement exemptions. So there are a variety of exemptions.
And people need to understand, though we say exemptions, it doesn't mean you're not paying taxes.
Right.
There's a reduction.
There's a reduction that comes off the taxable portion of your assessment.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that's really important for
Yes.
people to know
No,
about.
they're not exempt.
Right. And, you
Only
know,
a certain portion of your assessment's exempt.
So now, if you're a commercial property, we assess commercial properties differently than residential properties. Could you
Correct.
explain that a little bit?
Commercial properties are based on the income method, so it's actually what someone can expect to receive in a base rent for that commercial property. So if you have say it's a storage warehouse, what could you get per square foot for the rent of that building? And then a cap rate is then applied to that base rent, and then that's how the assessment is arrived at.
Okay, so yeah, so it's an income basis.
It's income based, yes.
Whereas in residential, it's
It's market.
market, what you could sell the property
Right.
for.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, so that it's an interesting difference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned before tax rates, and I want to at least try to explain this a little bit. So, when the town determines what it needs to run the town, let's say it's $100 million to run the entire town, we're going to collect $100 million. But how we collect it, each property based on their value will determine their slice of that pie, so to speak. So if one slice goes up in value because somebody took a small house and built a big house, everybody else's slices get a little more compressed.
Right.
So it's still got to collect 100,000, but it's going to be divided differently amongst the population. So if in an area that, let's say, had a new commercial development occurred, so that property maybe had been contributing 100,000 in taxes, and now it's contributing 500,000 in taxes. That's 400,000 more from that property. It means 400,000 less is coming from the rest of that community, right?
Yes, it could mean.
I'm trying to simplify it, so it's not easy to explain.
Right. It's not easy math. Actually, that's probably more of a question for the tax receiver. But usually, when you have growth in one area, the tax rate, it will actually lessen the tax rate for the others so that the others will actually end up paying less.
Right. So just because your property value went up doesn't mean your taxes went up. So if everybody's property, in the entire community, if everybody's property went up by 10%, nobody's paying more in taxes. It's the same dollar figure. But the number that I multiply, that fraction is going to shrink a little bit. That's the tax rate.
Right. That tax rate, it will either shrink or it will stay the same so long as the budgets in those districts don't increase.
So typically when we talk about tax rate, sometimes it's described in terms of, let's say, $1 for every $1,000 of value on your home. But it's always turned into a decimal fraction, or a multiplier. So you take that, let's say it's 0.04, whatever it is, and you multiply that against your value, and that will determine
your taxes,
your actual taxes that you pay.
Correct.
Now, in some towns, they don't have full value assessment.
That's right, they're at a fraction.
So then you have to take the assessment to get to the true value that the town believes your property is, and then you have to correct it. That's called what, the equalization rate?
It's the equalization rate, right. You have to divide the assessment by the equalization rate, and then that will give you the true taxes.
So the town of Southampton is one of only, I think, 2 towns in the area that have an equalization rate of 1.
100,
you multiply something by 1, it's the same thing.
It's the same.
So other towns, you might have to multiply by 2, 3, 4, 5 times what the assessment is to get to the true value. So we have an equalization rate of 1. Shelter Island does as well, but they're much smaller.
Shelter Island and Southampton, yeah. We're the only 2 towns in Suffolk County that do annual reassessments.
And what's the benefit of doing that?
Well, the benefit of doing an annual reassessment is that it creates equity among property values. So you can't say that some part of the town is at 100% and another part is only at 90%. Everyone's paying their fair share. It also creates a more stable and a better bond rating for the town because you have consistency. And also it creates transparency. So if everyone is the same, then you're actually explaining the same methodology to everyone throughout the town.
Now, in doing so, we have a requirement to stay at full value. We have to, every 4 years, right? We do sort of a town-wide reassessment, and then in the interim years, we
can use trending.
We do more of a market trend analysis. So when is the next town-wide assessment coming?
Our next full town-wide assessment is going to be the 2019 assessment roll.
2019, so next year.
Yes.
And so now will we hire appraisers to help us with that? How is that going to work?
We do it in-house.
You do it in-house.
Of course, we would love to hire more appraisers, but we do it in-house. I have a great staff. They have helped my office maintain 100% for the last, I think we've been at 100% since 2004 when we started doing the the annual reassessments, and they're a great team.
Now, have you seen any surprising trends in terms of real estate values in the last year or more? Not so much in the last year. Parts of Southampton town, they can just continue to increase. Even back in 2010, 2011, when we started seeing decreases in the market, probably nationwide. Oh, with the recession, like 2007, 2008.
Right. Southampton town, parts of Southampton town was never affected. We did have areas probably west of the canal that we saw property tax assessment decreases, but not east of the town. And we're a pretty unique
Right, so
town
east
here.
of the canal, it's been going up faster.
It's been going up faster.
And west of the canal, but lately west of the canal, Hampton Bays area seems to be growing.
Yeah, we've started to see a lot of growth on that part of the town as well.
Right. I know some years, we can look at just the last year, the total valuation, which means the total value of every building, all combined, grew by, I want to say, about $3 billion in value, about a 5% jump. And that's the second year in a row.
And
So when you add up everything, we're in that $60 billion range, right?
yes, and after doing a preliminary roll for the upcoming 2018 year, we're probably going to see another $3 billion.
Another $3 billion. Wow. So we're going to be, what, in the mid-60s?
About $63 billion.
$63 billion.
Yes.
So, so land continues to be a good investment, right?
Definitely.
This area, you know, we see the stock market goes all over the place, but
Yep.
the East End, I'm always thinking about how we maintain high-value properties. You know, what does it take to, you know, for people to spend the kind of money that they do in our community? Because I want to make sure that doesn't slide.
Right.
So I know people want great parks, they want good roads, they want to feel safe when they walk around, so good police services, good schools, all those things, great services. Now today people want good reception on their cell phones, good Wi-Fi.
Right.
You know, technology is important to people. I guess more the millennials, it's important. But you know, we must be doing something right because we keep seeing these increases in property values.
Right. All of those things that you mentioned also maintain property values because
Right.
that's what people look for when they're looking to buy.
Right, and it's, you know, it's good to see that west of the canal too is starting to go up in value. When you see some of these selling prices and you compare them to what we believe the assessments are you seeing some surprises?
Definitely. A lot of times we'll see prices, you know, $25 million for, you know, a property in the village, and we may have it assessed at maybe half that. And,
Right.
you know, I have some really great appraisers on staff, and just trying to get to that number, it's challenging.
Right, well, because no two properties are the same.
No two properties are alike.
And assessment is not an exact science.
Right.
Right, so
we
there's
do it on a mass appraisal basis, so
a lot of
it's very
assumptions are being
challenging.
made. You're looking at comparable properties, but there's different features to each property. So it might be on the same street, but one might be next to the gas station. You know?
That's right, yeah.
And that's not going to be as valuable as the one that's further from the gas
That's right.
station.
And some properties may have land restrictions. You know, they may
Right.
have wetlands or conservation easement.
Right.
So stuff
One
like
might
that.
have a view that another one doesn't
Exactly.
have.
Yep.
You know, I was on Facebook the other day, and somebody was making a comment about a house that's sold in Sag Harbor, tiny little house for $10 million, and they were shocked. And nothing shocks me anymore. I mean, there's properties I've seen transfers at $100 million.
Yes.
What's the highest home sale that you've seen?
Probably, I would probably have to say it was in the village. Might have been like 55 million.
55 million. Yeah, that 100 million one was in East Hampton. About $55 million. Wow.
Yes.
You know, so with that property on the tax rolls, if it's assessed at that number, now we don't adjust the assessment just based on a sale.
No.
But if it were assessed at that, that's going to be paying a significant amount of property taxes.
Well, for a property to sell like that in the village, they'd probably be in the Southampton School District, and I believe the Southampton School District has one of the lowest tax rates for a school district. So,
Sure.
So it doesn't mean that they're looking at an astronomical amount of taxes
Right.
in the village.
Right. That's
And-
true too, because there's so many summer homes that aren't putting kids in the school district.
Right.
Here,
Right.
and then you have these really high-valued properties. That helps the rest of us who are year-round and have more
Right.
modest homes, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And just to get back to what you were saying about assessing a property when it sells, legally the assessor's office cannot do that. We have to have enough sales in any given area that would actually support an increase or a decrease.
Now, are you a is it licensed, a certified assessor?
Certified, yes.
Right. So you had to go through certain training to become that?
Yes, to become a New York State certified assessor, Office of Real Property Tax Services requires the assessor to go through numerous trainings, workshops, mostly appraisal trainings, real estate courses, continuing ed. I have to have 12 continuing eds a year, so the state provides an annual seminar for the assessors to attend to maintain their continuing ed credits.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about market trend assessment. So this is what I get a lot of calls to my office with people who are upset because most people understand when they put a pool in or an addition, their taxes are going to go up. But sometimes people haven't done anything.
Right.
Or haven't done anything. It's just that maybe they live on a street that was a year-round community and now people are building summer homes, they're tearing down the little houses, they're putting up big houses, and their little house, the land that it's sitting on, is getting more and more valuable because of that pressure. And then we do this analysis, and that we determine that that property is worth more than it's currently assessed at. I know we've talked about it, whether there's anything we can do to help those people, whether we could phase it in. A lot of this stuff, though, is governed by state law.
Right.
So there's really not much that we can do.
That's right. We're finding that most of the value, of course, it's in the land. We have a lot of neighborhoods. We saw probably last year over in the Noyak area, properties were selling for, in $4 or $5 million. But yet you have the year-round residents, the tiny cottages, who, they don't want to sell, but yet their property values, they're going to go up in relation to what, to what we're seeing in the market. So like you said, they didn't do any changes. But because we have enough sales in that area to substantiate an increase, unfortunately, those properties have to increase as well.
Right, and I understand why people would feel frustrated. I do. I mean, the good side, on the positive is that their property values are going up.
Right.
So if they ever do sell, they'll be able to reap that reward. But a lot of people are on fixed incomes. And,
right.
They can't afford to have their taxes go up by 50%.
Right. Well, that's why we want to, we always want to make sure, that they have their proper exemptions, especially the senior citizens. And two, when their assessment increases, their exemption increases along with the assessment.
Right.
So.
Well, I think, the good news for the town is that we've actually lowered the tax rate. This current year and the year before, and it's been pretty steady. I think for at least the last 8 years, we really haven't seen much change, at least in the town's portion of that tax rate. So I'm constantly thinking about how do we, prevent increases in the actual dollars that people will have to pay, and I think part of it is by looking for revenue from other areas. More grants. We've been bringing in a lot of grant dollars. Looking just for other ways maybe to make government more efficient, not to have to hire more people.
Right.
Smart, simple things like we've been making buildings more energy efficient, so that our utility bills will go down, so we won't need to collect as much money to pay for those kinds of things. So far, so good. It's not easy, but I certainly understand that people, there are limitations to how much people can pay. And nobody wants to see their taxes go up or their tax rates go up. So this stuff can be complicated and hard for people to understand. I hear a lot of misconceptions often, they just assume because their property value went up that their taxes went up. I said, check your tax bill.
Right.
I had
That's
one guy do this, and he said, actually I paid, he thought his property value went up slightly, but because of the reduction in the tax rate, his actually taxes went down. So he had the benefit of having a more valuable property and actually had lower taxes. So Don't assume immediately just because your property value went up a little bit that your taxes went up.
That's right.
But if people have questions, can they call your office?
They can certainly call
Or
our
visit?
office,
Yeah.
or, yep, my office opens up at 8:30 in the morning to the public, and we're there until 4 p.m. They can come in Monday through Friday, or they could always, give us a call if they have any questions.
What's the phone number?
It is 283-6020.
And again, so if somebody wants to grieve their taxes, what's the date for filing a grievance?
Grievance Day this year is going to be May 15th. The tentative assessment roll will be available on May 1st, and that's when the grievance process will begin.
Okay, and if people have questions about that, they can
If they have
call your
questions even
office,
before
come
grievance,
visit.
they can call my office and come in and
It's
sit
right
down
down
and
the
meet
hall
with
from
me.
my office,
Yep.
so they can come say
Yep.
hi to me as well. So, Lisa, it's a pleasure having
Thank
you.
you. Thank
Thanks
you for having me.
coming on the show.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on Talk of the Town.